This bill have been described by other speakers, but I'll just run through them quickly. As we've heard, the secondary tertiary programs are part of this bill, updating and clarifying the law affecting private schools, refund provisions for international students enrolled in private training establishments, exempting limited attendance centres from early childhood education licensing standards to make it easier for recreational facilities, shopping centres and similar organisations to provide short-term childcare, school enrolment scheme priorities to make it easier for the children of board members and former pupils living out of zone to attend a school. Mr Speaker, the Labour Party will not support this bill because, as Trevor Mallard has said, is the number of changes that the Labour members of the Select Committee wanted were not included in this bill. Now, I wasn't a member of the Education Select Committee, but I have my own reasons for believing that this bill will actually do very little whatsoever to actually make a difference for the core purpose of education. This bill, in my opinion, tinkers at the margins. It does nothing to address what is really necessary to be addressed in education in order to improve outcomes for kids, in order to shorten the tail that we hear so much about in education. Mr Speaker, everybody in this House really needs to realise when it comes to talking about educational policy and educational legislation is that we need to fixate on what is going to make the biggest difference in raising achievement. And the biggest difference in raising achievement is when we focus on teachers, not even on teachers, on teaching. Because it's not teachers that actually raise achievement, it's what teachers do that raises achievement. And that's what we need to do. We will not actually raise achievement until our legislation and our policies send a laser beam down on what it is that teachers do and how we can support teachers to do what they do better. Mr Speaker, the person that the government refers to most of all when they want advice on education policy is Professor John Hattie. Now, he's done his best to create a science out of the art of teaching. And I actually agree with a lot of what Professor Hattie says. Now, one of the big things that he says is that there are about 136 strategies. He says this in his book, Visible Learning, about 136 strategies that teachers engage in their practice. And he makes it easy for us because he lists those in order of what is most effective and it goes through to what is least effective. He talks about strategies with an effect size of 0, meaning that anything a teacher does with an effect size of 0 will have no impact on learning. Of those 136 strategies, about 5 of them have an effect size of less than 0. So there are about 5 strategies that actually make kids dumber. We can't just fixate, and then that means that there's all these other strategies. We have these other strategies that do actually impact on student achievement, except it's no point fixating on those strategies that are have an effect size just above 0. Professor Hattie says that the strategies we need to use are the strategies that have an effect size of 0.4 or higher, because they're in the top half of strategies that make a difference. He's not saying we need to follow these strategies as a recipe and just tick them off, but we actually need to focus our policy on those strategies because they are proven to have the biggest difference in raising educational achievement. If we take kotahitanga, as somebody has mentioned from the other side, Rahui Katani mentioned, te kotahitanga is about the relationships that teachers have with their students. But on that scale that Professor Hattie talks about, relationships is number 11. Number 11, the 11th most effective strategy that can be employed. So that means there's 10 other strategies or 10 other things that we can legislate about and allow teachers to do, support them to do in their classrooms that are going to have a bigger impact on educational achievement than the Te Kotahitanga program. And we all know that Te Kotahitanga is extremely, extremely effective. So, Mr. Speaker, it's not until this House fixates its legislation, its educational legislation and its educational policies on those strategies that are proven to make the most difference to raising achievement, that we're actually going to address that tale of underachievement and lift everybody up. So I implore the Minister, when she brings the Education Amendment Bill number 3 to the House, to make sure that what is included in that Education Amendment Bill only squarely focuses on those strategies that are proven to be most effective at raising achievement. Mr. Speaker, the secondary, tertiary programs that have been talked about here, I believe that they probably will make a difference. Not a huge difference, but some difference. And what the secondary, tertiary programs are doing is actually, as Colin King has mentioned, provide another pathway for students to learn. It actually changes the context in which they're learning. In itself, it may not make a difference. It depends again what the teachers those kids have in the tertiary, secondary programs. It's what they have. It's what they do. That will make the difference. So I think that it's good that the government is thinking along different contexts, and I just want to actually bring up something that Alan Peachy wrote in a book that he wrote. I read it while I was still a principal, and he said that New Zealand is scared to specialise at an early age. And I think that we could perhaps be a bit braver in allowing students to specialise at an earlier age. So what we have here with this bill is secondary, tertiary, it's a pathway. We already have the academic pathway that's going on in schools at the moment, and not all kids are successful with that pathway. But I think that we should try to think outside the square and come up with other pathways that students can also participate in. And one of those pathways, Mr. Speaker, that I believe that we should look at is quite simply the art of teaching kids how to make money, how to use money, how to invest money, how to be entrepreneurs and how to be enterprising. And so if we could have the students who don't want to go off to a technical school or a practical school, they don't want to actually do the academic stuff, but they actually just might want to set up their own business before they leave school, that is a really worthwhile avenue that we could focus on. Another strand could be that we have allow students to pursue to specialise in sports. Now, I'm not saying that we should that a sporting academy, for want of a better name, should be any less academically rigorous. It's just it's changing the context of those kids learning so that instead of going to a classroom, the traditional classroom with 4 walls and a whiteboard and a teacher standing at the front, they actually are learning in a context that's based around sports. And if we look at the career pathways that could lead kids into, they could lead into, they could all be train them up to become All Blacks or netballers or rowers, but we could also look at sports management, sports psychology, personal trainers, PT instructors, nurses, doctors. It's all about giving kids a whole heap of options and pathways forward to their futures. And we shouldn't just fixate on and think that just because we've got secondary, tertiary programs that we're actually catering for all the needs of all the kids. So I think that we need to actually be brave and bold and explore other pathways for children to actually achieve beyond their potential. Just finally, Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit concerned about, well, I'm very concerned about the limited attendance centres not having to screen the employees. I think that it's very dangerous that people can just go into an early childhood centre in a mall or shopping centre and they can just set up shop and start looking after kids. I think that's a really dangerous thing.
Member's time has expired.
for us to pursue. Thank you.